Senator, we have 5 minutes. You sent a public letter out 2 weeks ago to President Obama, chiding the president because he hasn't made good in his commitment to take 10,000 Syrian refugees into the United States. He said he was 8,800 short, or let's say 9,000. Here's what I don't understand about this, Senator, and I have ultimate respect for you, as I know. What does getting another 9,000 refugees into the United States at $70,000 relocation cost each, which is at least $600 million, with a country that's $20 trillion in debt? We're having these anemic job growth numbers. How does this do anything for your constituents in Virginia? When are we going to start putting Virginians and Americans ahead of people all over the globe? I don't understand how this makes any sense at all.
Yeah, well, look, we do put Americans first, but one of the things, John, that I think has been true about this country since its origins is that we are a great humanitarian nation. We're not just a great economic power or military power. We're a great humanitarian nation. The Syrian refugee crisis is the greatest humanitarian crisis, just in terms of the number of people affected, since World War II. There's over 2 million refugees in Turkey, over 1 million in Lebanon, over 1 million in Jordan. European nations are acting out of their own humanitarian impulse to accept hundreds of thousands of refugees. And I think the United States has a place anytime there's a humanitarian challenge in the world. It might be an earthquake in Haiti or a tsunami in the Pacific. Anytime there's a humanitarian crisis, the U.S. has a role to play. And I think this is a role that we can play and we should play. And I think it's in the best tradition of this country. And I don't think it's necessarily just about helping foreigners. I think it's about doing what we have done so well. Look at the Vietnamese refugee resettlement that we did in this country, and look how wonderful the Vietnamese community has been integrated into Virginia and nations all over and communities all over the country. So this is something that the world needs to respond to, this humanitarian crisis, and the U.S. has a role in it.
You know what? You say the world should respond to it. I think Vietnam is much different. We were actually involved in that conflict there, but we sent troops to Kuwait that bled to death. Let me tell you how many of these Syrian refugees they're accepting. 0. The Arab Emirates, 0. The Saudis, 0. Dubai, 0. We got 20,000 people right now living in drains in Los Angeles. We've got 4 countries right in the Middle East, miles away, that aren't accepting any of them. I just don't see for Americans how this makes any sense. And what we say to the 20,000 people in L.A. that are living under drains today. I live in Chesapeake. We have 200 people in Oscar Smith High School, where Obama went and talked, that don't have a home. 200 students don't have a home in Oscar Smith High School in Chesapeake. And we're worrying about taking in 9,000 people from Syria. I don't understand it.
Well, John, we could have said that about any other similar instance in the history of this country. When we took displaced persons from Europe after World War II, when we took Vietnamese refugees after the Vietnam War, we had economic challenges. We had difficulties. But we said America's greatness is partially our greatness as a humanitarian nation. And I think as Americans, think about our role in the world, we think of ourselves that way, and we're proud of the example that we set. And you're right, I hold the Gulf nations in scorn that are not doing more, but I also have been to Turkey and been to Lebanon and been to Jordan and seen a nation like Jordan that's really poor. They don't have oil revenues. They hardly have enough water for their own population, and they're caring for more than 1 million Syrian refugees. I just don't think 10,000 is too much for the United States to be able to do. And I'll tell you, just like these earlier generations of refugees have become part and parcel of our fabric and enriched our nation, I think these Syrian refugees, properly vetted, will do the same thing.
Well, I don't have an argument with the vetting issue. My argument is we had just another anemic job growth. We don't have any money. Our schools are being overrun. They don't speak English. I just think, Senator, we've got to start to think about Americans. When I got 200 students in my high school that are up the street from me that don't have a home, and we're worrying about people in Syria. I just don't know where our priorities are, sir.
Look, this is going to be one where we disagree with respect to the Syrians, but I don't disagree with respect to the needs of Americans. That's why I'm working on career and technical education issues. That's why I'm working on housing reform issues and veterans homelessness. Yeah, we've got a lot of challenges here, but we have always been able to battle with our own challenges and yet still hold up a standard as a nation known for our humanitarian greatness. And I don't ever want to get to be a position where when there's humanitarian crises in the world, it's for other nations to deal with and we're not at the table. I like the fact that we're on the scene in Haiti. We're on the scene when there's an Ebola crisis in Africa. We're on the scene when there's a need for tsunami relief in the Pacific. When the tsunami hit the Pacific, you had Presidents Clinton and President Bush, 41, standing up together and leading the effort to try to raise funds to help. That's part of our greatness, and I just hope we don't lose that.
John,
all right, David,
this is
David.
Dave.
You
Yeah.
got the final word.
Final word. Tim is right. You, John, are wrong.
Okay, Senator, I appreciate your spirited debate. David had to weigh in, but at the end of the day, Senator, in your heart, I want you to pick up the phone and call the Kingdom of Kuwait and said, we died for your country, and you're not taking these Syrian
you're right.
refugees
You're right
in.
about that. John, you are completely right about the Gulf states. It's very maddening.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. We're out of time. I want to thank Senator Tim Kaine for being with us and David Marston for monitoring the debate, saying that Tim won. You're a great referee, David.
Thank you.
Like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the system is rigged. Thank you, Senator.